This is Healthcare Now, radio's trending now. Get ready for an exhilarating 30-minute ride through the latest topics driving change in digital health across the news and social media. Join us as our subject matter host takes the lead in uncovering what's hot and what's not. So buckle up and tune in to stay in the know.
Hello and welcome to Trending Now. I'm Roberta Mullin, Answers Media's editor, and I'm sitting in for Shahid today. And what's trending now is ViVE 2025 in Nashville. And we're going to look at the vendor perspective right now. With me is James Aita. He works for Medicomp Systems. He's the Director of Strategy and Business Development. Hi, James.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You like to do some recaps with us at the conferences.
That's right. I think this is, my third, fourth year. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
James actually has a booth here with his company and has for, how many years have you been doing it?
Ooh, I think this is our fourth year that we've done ViVE. We've been doing this pretty much since they started doing it. You know, we really enjoy the show. So
this is the fourth year of ViVE, right? Okay, so tell us, first of all, let me ask you, because I don't think I know a lot about you except for you're a new dad.
That's right. Yeah, 10 months old. So if I mess up while I'm talking, it's because I haven't had a lot of sleep in the last little while at all. So yeah.
No, tell us your journey, how you got into healthcare.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I actually was kind of born into the industry, believe it or not. My family had one of the first electronic health record companies at all. And so we started in the 90s. We actually had a billing company even before that. So it was just kind of born into my DNA. So I went to business school, but even when I was like 10, 11 years old, I was designing logos for healthcare IT companies, which happened to be my family's. And so I worked in my family's companies for years and years. We had ambulatory EHR. I built a whole practice management system myself. I was the product manager for that. And we were on the stock exchange for a while. And then that company actually was a customer, one of the first customers of the company I work for now, Medicomp Systems, using their terminology and the intelligence engine way back then in the early 2000s. And then in 2008, we were hit by the financial crisis, just like everyone else. And we had some investors who, get a little antsy when that happens. And so that company ended up getting sold. And Medicomp pretty much scooped me up pretty much right after that. And so, I've been with them pretty much ever since in various roles. I was on product side, and now I've moved to more strategy and business development.
So tell us a little bit about Medicomp Systems.
Yeah, Medicomp Systems. I always thought of these guys as the Einsteins of the industry. Back when I first met them, I was probably in my teens when I first met the founder and our current CEO, Dave Leroux. And, they had built something really amazing. They built the first terminology, clinical terminology for use at the point of care. That includes concepts that span everything that a clinician might say in medicine, from symptoms to tests, diagnoses, and therapies. But really what they've been trying to do the entire time is link those data points diagnostically so clinical systems can think and work the way that clinicians do. And so that can drive clinical workflows. It can slice and dice patient data. We're doing some pretty amazing things with natural language processing and large language models now to convert unstructured data, so dictation, conversational AI, into structured data that computers can use, make use of, do quality measure analysis, do interoperability, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty exciting stuff. We're also working on fixing the bad data that's been out there for these legacy systems that have been out there for 20, 30 years. A lot of them, specifically in the sites, have data that is really not good. Either it's unstructured or someone who didn't know how to do mapping, did bad mapping. So we've had some of our bigger customers have said, hey, can you help us fix this data problem that we have that we don't want to talk about? And so that's one of the things that we're solving now for them as well.
Yeah, legacy systems. I don't think that word will ever go away.
No, I don't think it will.
When will our current systems be legacy systems?
I think the legacy systems are going to stay legacy systems for a long time. So who knows?
I know the health systems have some, they take you back to that room and open up the doors, and it's like, what about this?
Yeah. And even what I'm using like finger quotes here, but even the new stuff that's there is sometimes just making it look shinier, but what's behind the scenes still hasn't changed from 30 years ago. So,
and I understand Medicomp System has a lot of patents.
Yeah. Yeah. We have really brought a lot of new techniques, new ideas, new ways of doing things to the industry. Right from, this company was started in the 1970s, and so all the way along, we were building things in a novel way. Our founder thought of computers, computing clinical data, over the internet and all these kinds of things long before these ideas were even close to mainstream. And so, I joke these days that we were doing clinical AI, 20 years, 30 years before AI was a thing. And it's true. And so we have a lot of patents on various different techniques to do some of what I mentioned earlier. Absolutely.
I went to several sessions here this last couple of days, and they all started, if they were going to talk about AI, they all started with AI is not new.
No, it's not.
Right.
Large language models might be new, but the idea of a computer being able to mimic something that a human does, which is what artificial intelligence is not new. That's what algorithms for. And I tell you, large language models are not necessarily the right tool for any given problem. And I think that's, especially when you get investors involved in all this, like there's a real misconception that everything is large language models, and large language models are always the right tool. They're not. They're inconsistent. They make things up. They're built to correlate to things like what would be the next word that someone might say that you would find in a book. That's not always the right tool, especially when lives are at stake. And so, what matters is what are you really having driving things behind the scenes. And that's one of the reasons that I think Medicomp is very well placed, because we have been building an expert AI system with doctors from every specialty to say, when you're thinking of this very specific type of cancer, what are all the data points that you would want to see on the screen for documentation or for treatment? What are the genes? You don't want some machine learning system to make stuff up and get things wrong there. And so we put the guide rails on that.
All right, let's get to ViVE. We're in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
We were here 2 years ago with ViVE, because LA was last year and the one before. And if I recall correctly, we were wearing T-shirts and shorts, I think.
Some of us were.
Is that right?
Yeah. At least when we weren't inside the trade show hall, yeah. That's not happening right now.
No, it's not. We woke up to Winter Wonderland, I believe it is.
A couple inches of snow outside at least, yeah. I think even there was like the massage people who come in. I guess they're local. I walked over because my neck is completely frozen right now, and they're like, "Yeah, the massage people didn't show up today. There's snow outside. It's not happening."
It's not happening. I live in Atlanta, and we're snow shy too. Mm-hmm. Like we all stay in when it snows.
Yeah, I'm from the Northeast. So
right.
I see half a foot of snow outside. I'm like, okay, what's everyone worried about here?
Exactly.
Get out the salt, get out the shovels, and get to it.
Get out the plows. See, that's what they're missing down here.
That's right. Yes, I heard that there's 4 plows for the entire city. I think that's not going to be enough.
And that's only for emergency, and you're not an emergency.
That's right.
Right, exactly. Well, Atlanta's pretty much the same thing. All right, so let's talk about ViVE. So, and you've been to 4 now. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the same that is consistent with this? Good, bad, indifferent.
Okay, the same, I think. First of all, I have to give credit. I think they put on a great show. There's something, especially as a vendor, I love about showing up with your laptop, your booth is already done. They've got the graphics, they've got everything set up for you. You connect your laptop and you go. That, I think, was a novel thing that they did pretty much right from the get-go. And as an exhibitor, it's great. We send our graphics in beforehand. They take care of the rest. And so for us, that has been a godsend, especially with a new show. I mean, relatively new. It's 4 years. For us, that was a big draw and has continued to be a big draw. And, we've added to our footprint because we found it nice and easy. The show size is pretty good. I feel like they keep it somewhat controlled. It's obviously grown, but they've kept that. And I think there's a real focus on everyone being treated the same, whether you're an attendee or a visitor. Or other shows that definitely did not do that over the years. And I think the approach where you have the food in the same hall, where you have the sessions in the same hall, where you have everything kind of in the same place, so the exhibitors can go and have lunch, the exhibitors can go catch a speaking engagement, all that kind of stuff, is quite good. And that's, I think, pretty much stayed consistent over the years.
Yeah, I like that too. I like everybody in the same place, and you're not. All right, so what about the attendees? How are they? Do you think they're the same? Are they attracting new types of attendees coming here?
That's an interesting question. I would say for the most part, I would say that they're the same. I mean, this show has always brought in a lot of the investment community. If anything, I would say there's more of the investment community folks here this year than I've seen in the past. It's always been a large chunk of the attendees that are here, but I would say even more than in the past. I'd also say what I've noticed is a change in the exhibitors. I'm used to seeing kind of the same names over and over and over, and then maybe some startups that you don't recognize here and there, and who are these guys, who are those guys. I feel like, especially this year, I'm seeing a lot of names that I don't recognize with large booths, or larger booths than I would have expected to see. So I don't know exactly what that means. In previous years, I really felt an influx of money coming into the industry. I'd say, right before the Silicon Valley Bank went down, I really felt like there was a ton of money coming into the industry. It feels like maybe there's a little more now, but kind of tepid slightly. But interesting sort of startup looking companies with modest sized booths that I've never heard of before. So, and almost every single one of those is in some form of AI. A lot of AI scheduling, a lot of AI chatbots, a lot of AI, interacting with patients in some kind of respect or another. So I see a lot of that, and a lot of the investment community just kind of walking around as attendees.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Roberta Mullin, and you are listening to Trending Now on Healthcare Now Radio. I'm talking to James Aita. He's a vendor at ViVE this year with his company, Medicomp Systems. James, we were just talking about what's the same. Let's talk about what's new. What do you think's new here?
Well, we already mentioned that there was a little bit of a drop in attendees. So that's a bit new to me because so far I've seen kind of an upward growth in terms of the number of people that are here. Again, new to me would be the amount of investment community folks that are here and, the amount of AI, right? So in years past, I saw a little bit of AI. Of course, as like ChatGPT got big, you start to see a little bit more of it in health. In the fall, I noticed that as well. But really, almost everyone's booth this year says AI in some way or another. So I think that, to me, was the biggest change. And I mentioned it already, but all of the startups that, never heard of, who are these guys that have AI there? That was the big learning to me. And it feels like some of the speaking engagements were a little bit more self-promotional than I thought was allowed in the past. So, I've spoken to the organizers in the past, and they're, we can't be self-promotional. And, they seem to be quite selective on who was speaking. That seems to have changed in the past this year. So I'd maybe like to speak to them to see if that maybe we could get on there and talk a little bit about what we're doing, since we think we're kind of revolutionary. The other thing that seems to be new and has frustrated several of us is this wristband that I don't exactly know why we have to. If I'm wearing a badge and it's got my name on it and my picture, I'm not exactly sure what the point is of the wristband, which is, I'd say, quite uncomfortable and got into my food more than once. So I think it's unnecessary and probably costs something. So maybe we can cut that one.
I don't know. They have the picture, they have that. So let's put it that way.
It's like some sort of in-person two-factor authentication. Okay.
There you go.
I'm not. I'm not sure I'm entirely on board with it. Yeah.
Manual and old school. Right.
I feel like we can do better.
I feel like we do. And you'll notice if you look at all the staff people in there, they have a rubber band on there. It's rubber.
Oh, so yeah, they can easily take off. Okay. So
yeah, and it's not getting in their face.
I feel like we can iterate on this one.
I feel like we can do better. Yeah. We can do better. Exactly.
I've said there's more than one person that complained to me as though I was an exhibit, as an organizer, that I need to do something about it. So at least hopefully someone will hear this and go, yeah, maybe do something about it.
And I agree that AI is, of course, for the last year now, it's been sucking the air out of every single venue you've been in. But they had AI, and interoperability is a big deal in our industry also. So those are the two largest, speaking content, what's going on kind of thing. And they have this little theater over there, A, B, and C, for interop and AI. So as I'm doing all my sessions yesterday and the day before, I sat in the big corner ones, the rock and roll and the jazz, all those theaters, and they had maybe a quarter of the seats taken in there. You walked over to the interop in that theater that was in the round, so you had 3 people going on at the same time. The people were packed. You couldn't get by it.
Oh, wow.
You could not get, and that was all day long for the last 2 days. And so I'm thinking that they missed the boat on like what people were going to listen to. One, they were 20 minutes. They were short sessions, but the people were packed, the seats were gone because they were just little theater kind of seats there. So I think they need some, they need to look at that.
As you were talking, there's 2 other things I remembered. Number one, and this will sort of in their favor. In the past, some of the areas where they were doing the speaking engagements had really loud music that they were playing. And because the speaking engagements are in the same hall as the vendors are, if you're a vendor and you're near there, you couldn't have a conversation with anyone who's at your booth. And that happened to us one year. And so I'm glad that they changed that. That's very, very good for the vendors, particularly who are anywhere near these stages. The other thing is that you'll notice, and I don't want to get to this political, but none of the administration folks are here this year.
That's right.
I know a couple of folks who do work for the government, and they had to come here on their own dime, or they lived here, or whatever the case may be. Right. And so they usually send quite a few people here. So that's also a big reduction. You're not seeing any of the folks that are in any part of the government that are here.
Right. So they have not lifted the communications ban yet. So, and it looks like all the cabinet's now in place. And so maybe at HIMSS. Maybe at HIMSS. I don't know, but yeah, it was pretty much.
I know at least as of yesterday, the travel freeze is still on. So that's definitely contributing to that.
Right. And the music thing, that's interesting because I was sitting in the rock and roll stage yesterday waiting for a session, and they were playing a lot of rap.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting. Yeah. Rock and roll stage. Okay. Well,
I never got to the country stage, so I don't know what they were playing there.
I understand, genre changeover a little bit. One genre shares from another, but that's a pretty big leap, I think.
Exactly. Let's end this with some trends that are happening here. Are they going to, is this a trendsetter? Are they a trendsetter?
I think, in terms of trade shows, I do think that ViVE has shifted the industry definitely. I mean, we know the other big dog in terms of trade shows is HIMSS. They got sold off, 2 years now? And I've spoken to people who work there, and they're definitely taking cues from some of the things that people really enjoyed here. So in terms of the show itself, I do think so, yes. And particularly how much focus is on actually the exhibitors and allowing them to have a similar experience, and some quality of life things at the show. So definitely yes. I think in terms of our industry, in terms of the healthcare industry, health tech industry, I come to ViVE in health also largely to see what are the trends, because particularly because the investment community is here so much. This has a large focus. I think it replaced Health 2.0 in that way, of bringing the investment community to see all these startups and see what's kind of bleeding edge in the industry. That is a touch point for us as well to kind of get where are things going, in the next 4 or 5 years. Obviously, AI, as you said, is kind of sucking up a lot of the air. And it's usually a chance for us to meet with some of the government folks as well to see kind of where is the policy direction going. This year, things are definitely up in the air, so we don't really know very, very much. Although the little I have heard does suggest that we're going to move in the direction of maybe deregulating some of the AI stuff a little bit. Outside of that, it seems to be unclear at this point.
Interesting, because while I was listening to rap and waiting for the panel yesterday in the rock and roll stage, that it was about AI, actually. And they had all of the people involved on the stage were gung-ho that there needs to be regulations in the healthcare side. And they were kind of they said they need to figure out how to do it. Like who needs to be involved in everything else, and they need to. They have to, because there's so much junk going out there now.
Right. And I think that there is this kind of duality where there are people who definitely want solutions to be able to be out there and solve problems very quickly. The people who are making solutions recognize also that, as you said, junk is going to go out there. And in healthcare, junk could potentially mean people are going to die. I suspect people are going to die. And, there might be a feeling out there that, okay, if people die, well, then the makers of the solutions are going to be liable, and let the courts handle it. I don't know that that's the best solution. Personally, I think that we should have guardrails. That's my opinion. And I know it's an opinion of many people out there. Some of that work was done with what's in HTI 1. Is that going to be enforced? Will that continue to be the law, sort of law of the land? I don't know. We will... maybe we'll know better in a couple of weeks, but for now, that's pretty unclear.
What's your guess on the future, like maybe next year or whatever, even at ViVE next year? What is the AI solution that's going to be the thing?
I do think that, large language models having a role, particularly with natural language processing, taking unstructured free text and turning that into data that's usable for interoperability and all that. That's one piece. That's you're seeing that kind of uptake happening. There's a lot of work that needs to happen to make that really viable, because as you know, large language models get stuff wrong, make stuff up. So that's a problem. Putting the guardrails around that, making that work is one piece. I think the other piece is controlled patient engagement. So to the extent that you can ask, an AI chatbot, avatar, whatever, questions that you have about your condition, maybe an upcoming surgery that you want to know about. That can be very valuable, because no doctor is going to take an hour and a half to explain, your upcoming surgery to you and answer every little question you have. It's not going to happen. They just don't have the time for that. So there is a gap that can be filled there. I think where the problems come, and we're seeing solutions that go there that are already causing problems, is when you get in between the doctor and the patient with these chatbots, and you potentially don't send the information that needs to go to the doctor, that can be really problematic. It can be life-threatening, all of that. So there are some issues that need to be worked out there, and I think there's places where it can be very successful and very helpful to the industry, and there's some other places where there's potential for some big problems. So we'll see.
My guess is ambient.
Well, yeah, I guess ambient is part of that. Yes,
it's
the dictation.
Sexy.
It's sexy.
It's sexy.
It's sexy, and it kind of works right now. There's certainly some situations where they're doing well. I mean, even in your whatever Zoom, Teams, they're catching quite a lot of the sort of spoken word there, and that can be used with the LLMs to turn it into a SOAP note. That doesn't solve all the problems, though. The ambient, on its own it'll get stuff, but it's going to get stuff that you don't want, that you don't need. You still need a person to review it all, and you don't want a bunch of junk in your record. So there's, like I said before, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done there.
Right. I just think that it's very visible and people understand it. All this other stuff, they don't understand.
And I think the same thing is true now that was true 20 years ago, which is doctors don't want to document. They don't want to be sitting there in front of a computer. They want to take care of patients. And so to the extent that you can take the doctor away from having to, in quotes, fiddle with the computer, I think that there's a desire to do that. And that is one of the ways that we could do that. But you can't completely lean on it. So yes, it's sexy. Yes, it definitely will have a role. It's not the only solution though.
Right. And Ambien goes both ways because, if you think about really it being all around, if a doctor came into a room after the nurse has taken all your information, put it in the computer, and the doctor walks in and he says, "Who are we seeing today?" And your ambient, whoever you want to call it, is going to tell you and is going to tell you what the nurse did, right? Yeah. So it's that I'm thinking that it's going to be all around all the time. And it's not just for the doctor talking to it, it being part of your experience.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The sort of Siri in the room,
That's
right. The old Star Trek kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I do see that being
how.
Yeah. How? There you go. Yeah. All of these different examples. Yeah. I do think that there's a potential role for that in the future.
People already know Alexa. People already know Siri.
Yep.
It's not going to be like, oh, what's this all about? Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to come to ViVE next year to see.
Absolutely.
If we're talking about large model, whatever.
Where did we say it is next year? LA? Okay. So do I have to bring my coat to LA, my hat, or no? Which one is it this time?
I know exactly, right? Or your fireproof jackets, right?
Oh boy, yes. Good points.
Hello. All right. Thank you, James, for meeting with me today, and we'll see you at HIMSS, I guess, in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. And learn more about Trending Now on its program page on healthcarenowradio.com, and make sure you follow the show's hashtag Trending Now HC. I'm Roberta Mullin, sitting in for Shahid. And until next time, if it's happening in healthcare and it's on Trending Now.